5 places without any government. Western Sahara is a delightful little slice of nothing that nonetheless confirms our belief in the savage, violent nature of man by being the subject of bloody dispute for decades. Located just south of Morocco, Western Sahara was a Spanish colony until the latter half of the 20th century. Morocco has meanwhile turned the pieces of the country they do control into Potemkin villages, heavily subsidizing basic goods, fuel, housing and business that choose to relocate there. The result is an area that is considered one of the most sparsely populated on the planet, existing without a single effective central government. It's one of 16 countries on the UN's list of non-self-governing territories. The rest of the countries on the list are places like the Virgin Islands and Bermuda. As one of the few places on Earth that lacks anything resembling a government, Antarctica is of course going to make it onto this list. Though several countries made claims to Antarctica, and the continent does in fact possess natural resources, pretty much anything resembling land sits below a kilometer or 2 of solid ice. New claims to the continent are outlawed under the Antarctic Treaty System, the system of agreements governing the use of the continent. In fact, the treaty system specifically designates Antarctica as a natural reserve devoted to peace and science. Somalia. You might have seen Somalia in the news recently owing to their badass pirates and the even more badass Navy SEALs who shoot them in the head. Well, part of the reason Somalis have turned to the high seas for resources is because their country has been completely and repeatedly torn apart by war, famine and unrest. As a result, Somalia hasn't had anything that could be respectfully called a government for 2 decades. Perhaps one of the biggest ironies here is that Somalia was once a somewhat well put together nation. Its capital Mogadishu at one time was referred to as the White Pearl of the Indian Ocean. Belgium. Belgium is comprised of 2 major communities, the French-speaking Walloon to the south, and the Dutch-speaking Flemish to the north. Like most groups in Europe that speak 2 different languages, they cannot agree on anything. Specifically, they went almost 2 whole years without a government before forming one just this December. The Francophones and Dutch set a new world record at 541 days without a coalition government, and they didn't even have gays and abortion to argue about. Nutbush, Tennessee. Boasting a population of a whopping 259 people and one of the most holy wow did a 3rd grader who just learned how to swear come up with the names in the country. Nutbush is one of many unincorporated areas in America. Basically, America is huge, and a lot of communities were deemed too redneck to bother turning into a city. Before you start packing up your bongs, multiple wives, and copies of Atlas Shrugs, all unincorporated means is there is no local government in charge of Nutbush. They are still technically supposed to obey the laws of the county, state and country,